Give me the thumbs up, Lauren. Okay. Well, welcome to our workshop. It's titled Care, Water, Food, Shelter, Cost, Participatory Visual Analysis of Viral Imaginations. I'm Karen Kiefer-Boyd, Professor of Art Education and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies at Penn State. And I will be introducing and facilitating our workshop along with Michelle Meckel, Assistant Director of the Bioethics Program at Penn State, and Lauren Stetz, a doctoral candidate in art education with a minor in women's gender and sexuality studies, also at Penn State. Launched during the shelter-in-place phase of the coronavirus outbreak, the Viral Imaginations Project provides an online, publicly accessible gallery and archive of Pennsylvanian artistic expressions. In the forms of creative writing and visual art, the gallery houses first-person narratives of lived pandemic experiences. Relying on hybridity in multiple forms, Viral Imaginations offers insights into how the arts and humanities are ever more necessary to our well-being and collective healing during this time of the pandemic, racial, and environmental crises. Through this workshop, participants will critically explore the Viral Imaginations Gallery to analyze how the more than 200 works of art address the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals of care, water, food, shelter, and cost, all issues and themes that have become ever more urgent in living with the coronavirus in the air shared in our personal and at a global scale. The S3A Symposium provides sub-themes such as stewardship and empathy, you can see on the screen here, hospitality, disability, injustice, as a social action issues in a relationship to sustaining care. It is the larger themes and their sub-themes that we will use for visual analysis in this workshop. For water, sub-themes of value, health, accessibility, climate change, pollution. And for food, you can see there insecurity, organic and sustainable agriculture, as well as foraging. The art on the slide, titled How We Coped by Patricia, who did not give a last name, calls attention to the unsustainable plastic packaging of food. Shelter during the pandemic is a huge issue, conveyed in the art archived in Viral Imaginations, as well as cost during the pandemic, cost to humans, the environment, culture, and the economy.
Hello, everyone. I am Michelle Meckel. Thank you so much, Karen. So, Viral Imaginations is organized as an intersectional project that involves the fields of arts, health, humanities, and bioethics. And Viral Imaginations COVID-19 went live in April 2020 in the midst of the shelter-in-place phase of the coronavirus pandemic. It's a collaboration among the Penn State College of Arts and Architecture, the Bioethics Program, the Communications, Science, and Society Initiative, the Huck Institutes of the Life Sciences, the Humanities Institute, the College of the Liberal Arts, and the College of Medicine. Viral Imaginations is an ongoing web-based gallery and archive that curates and preserves current and former Pennsylvanians' imaginative and creative reflections on living in pandemic times. You can access Viral Imaginations at viralimaginations.psu.edu. This project gives Pennsylvanians a creative outlet to share their pandemic experiences. And by establishing an archive of such narratives across numerous and diverse intersectionalities, Viral Imaginations preserves for future study self-represented pandemic experiences from those who are often overlooked in historic accounts.
The Viral Imaginations COVID-19 project houses and displays the imaginative narratives and artistic expressions of Pennsylvanians through creative writing and visual art made in response to their first-person lived coronavirus pandemic experiences. Current and former Pennsylvanians of all ages have submitted and continue to submit their creative works, which are publicly accessible at viralimaginations.psu.edu. This gallery, which will be active as long as the pandemic is in its myriad phases, will be preserved as a historical archive of the pandemic. This project not only enables the contribution to the field academically and provides pedagogical applications, but it also, and most importantly, makes an immediate difference in the lives of individuals during this particularly challenging period. It does so by providing community in which to share and engage with artistic expression related to the COVID-19 pandemic experiences. After our brief introduction, we will visit the gallery archive, and we hope that you return to our workshop after our workshop to the Viral Imaginations website to explore creative expression that is archived there and add to the community by sharing your own creative narrative of this time.
I'm unmuted. Okay, let me start again here. In this Bioethics Participatory Visual Analysis of Viral Imaginations art workshop, a guiding question we pose is, what kind of arts and culture sustain us through social isolation while bolstering the future we want to live in? To understand the role of the arts during the pandemic, one needs to look at the art and read the poems, the creative writing. For example, Stephen Garcia of Center County describes the photo he submitted, quote, feels apocalyptic, a child in a wasteland devoid of what childhood should look like, mass, trying to make sense of it all at such a young age. And you can see that on the slide here. This photo conjures empathy and visceral sensations. Images in the Viral Imaginations Gallery also confront the notion of vulnerability. While COVID-19 severely threatened to elderly people residing in personal homes, it also forced many others with serious health conditions, including disability, into a year of quarantine. The arts are integral to forming subjectivity, knowing self, forming your identity. The arts are integral to forming community, a sense of belonging. The arts are integral to having agency, a sense of being able to make choices. Art is integral to enacting social change, and art is also a powerful way to interpret histories, concepts, and experiences. For example, Jenna Deal's 7-foot sculpture, and you can see that on the slide here, made of wood forming two people hugging, one black, the other white, conveys many of the themes in the work submitted: mental health, daily struggles of isolation, not being able to hug loved ones, racial inequities, and to be present in the moment and not take anything for granted. We are living in multiple crises: the earth, our health, life is uncertain. The arts are ever more necessary to our well-being as humans need to feel their purpose and value. The arts are sensory ways of knowing. The arts affect our emotions, attitudes, decisions, and even our behaviors. For many, sheltering in art was a way to cope with isolation, confinement, depression, anxiety, fears, uncertainty, trauma, grief, loss, among many other heightened experiences throughout the past year living within a pandemic. Visual art and creative writing, as mentioned, are the two art forms showcased in the gallery and archived. The visual art in the Viral Imagination Gallery are paintings, sculptures, installations, embroidery like the piece you see here, digital work, photography, sidewalk drawings, small works, and large scale. The curation of artworks on the Viral Imaginations website provides a critical awareness of the body, as well as experiences of communities in a time of personal and collective trauma and turmoil. Through the artist identification with the individual counties within Pennsylvania, researchers of the archive can observe trends within regional geographies. Where we are situated, the place, our positionality, our location during the pandemic impacts the experience of living during a pandemic. Viewing creative work in the Viral Imagination Gallery enables an examination of emergent themes revealed in the art across the pandemic's trajectory. All submissions are notable because the artworks are about experiences none of us have ever experienced before. For example, Stephen St. Amant's poem, Counting. We count the sick. This is his poem. We count the sick. We count the recovered. We count the dead. We count the days. But let us also count the blessings and the laughs, the calls, the notes, the friends, the smiles. Every meal, every breath, every heartbeat, every moment. So long as we're counting, there's endless good to count, even among the many frustrations and tears. We found that there are many other works about counting. Very interesting, this notion of counting that keeps showing up in the artwork and the poetry, such as Jen Hurt's creative writing titled The Count Strikes. In an excerpt from David Marvin's poem titled Grocery Shopping During a Pandemic, he writes, mass figures walk quickly, avoiding eye contact, as though the virus might leap through an unwary glance. Signs announce the new normal. I could carry death and never know. He could be my executioner. Who knows? That's again an excerpt there and not the whole poem. It's a very long poem. Subject matter in the Viral Imaginations Gallery is often of the everyday, such as shopping during a pandemic and staring out windows or depictions of the virus, distance, and being masked. Among the 231 visual art and literary artworks, at least that was our last count earlier in April of 2021, the relationship to the body over time, over pandemic time, began with fears of being close to other bodies, to fears of being alone and not being able to touch another. The body is enclosed, confined, lonely, anxious. Yet in many of the artworks, often emphasized in the artist's descriptions about their art, are desires and some glimmers of hope. Focusing on the concepts of distancing and confinement, many artists explored proximity in relation to physical and emotional closeness, pondering how individuals could experience affection and show empathy with faces shrouded in masks, as well as express the necessity of health safety regulations given the politics of mask wearing. From early days of the pandemic, with art about confinement, loneliness, and fears of living in protective bubbles, to hope often conveyed through nature, escape from reality and recovering to more recent works about vaccination. Ethical responsibility is also a theme in the art. To physically distance, to wear a mask, and take care not to spread the coronavirus, as well as appreciation to healthcare and others that do the essential work so communities have food and other necessities, a shared ethics that all human life is important. Moreover, viral imaginations could be considered socially engaged participatory art in itself, with curation as a contemporary art form. And that's really the form of the activity we're about to embark in. When conceptualized as socially engaged participatory art, we can contribute to developing this through our activity to human potentials for dialogue, as we will see soon, empathy, as well as personal and collective healing. The themes in the art in the gallery provide insights into mental health deterioration, daily struggles of isolation, racial inequities, and recognition to not take care, water, food, shelter, cost for granted. Let's begin the visual analysis activity. In the chat, if you can paste in the link that we're going to move to this working space, and I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and I'll meet you over there. And Lauren, Lauren or Michelle, if you can paste that in there, I'll stop sharing. And we might want to paste it in again, because if anyone's arrived since, they would not see it. So there we go. So I'm going to take that URL and oops, and let's see, are you on pause there? Are we on pause? Yes. Oh, go ahead and pause me. Okay, so oh good, I'm starting to see people popping in here, and that's great. So this is where we're going to hold the activity. It's simply a Google slide sharing area, but we're going to build this our own curation here, focused on each of these themes of the S3A symposium. And our data set is going to be coming from here. You can see my cursor right here is linked to the Viral Imaginations website. Particularly, I've linked directly to the gallery here. And you may want to think about some of the tracking statistics, which are, it's live and it's very current. And so there's this as well. But also this link here is a very good link about the sustainability goals in of themselves. And let's see, I click down here. And I found this on this page of the United Nations Sustainability Goals. There's this wonderful, it gives us a more detailed sense of each of these goals here with what we can do. So there are really action plans. So, you know, we have the donate what you don't use, or vaccinate your family. So these are all, you can see it's, you know, relationship to the goals, and then they go into more depth. And it's a really good link. You might want to explore it a little bit more. And toward the bottom here is a really kind of fast overview of the sustainability goals. So I'm going to go ahead and play it. It's just 2 minutes here, or 1 minute and 25 seconds. Can you hear it? Okay, so we're going to go, oops, I'm going to make sure to stop this here. And we're going to go back to this over here. And so I love it because it's so visual. And this is a visual analysis. And they also gave us lots of symbols of how we might think about connecting the ideas here. And I do have the instructions listed here, but I'm going to walk us through those instructions in a moment. And of course you have access to all the notes here too, which is a little bit more explained down here, but more simply up on the slide here. And I got this inspiration for this visual analysis from Nina Kachadorian's artwork. She does artwork of charts and maps and many other things as well, but she has a whole series in this area. And in this piece here, there's, if you looked online and looked at genealogies of the supermarket, you'd find different installations of it in different places, because what she does is she looks at a data set. In this case, she goes to a supermarket and she looks at the visual culture, the visual images on products. And then she looks, as she puts them together, she makes these connector lines as if it's a family tree, as if there's a lineage here. And in that, if you look closely, she deals with kind of a counter narrative, if you will, of the meanings of these visuals by their relationship with each other. So she puts them together, a remix in which she issues of racism and sexism and homophobia come out in this. Here's this one she draws from this well-known raisin packaging that we have, that she uses actual packaging. And I also put up Esther Hernandez's work here to show how that the you know, what you see often hides the, in this case, the pesticide cost to human health, which is one of the United Nations, one of the sustainable goals, also picked up in this S3A symposium here. So so we have these you know, sun mad raisins, and I you know, if you want to look more, there's more information about it down here. We have like the brawny the Mr. Clean logo guy, and the brawny the one on paper towels, and their little baby is the Gerber baby. So creates these kind of families that like I said, calls attention to the intersections of racism, sexism, and homophobia by repositioning. Well, that's what we're going to do with our own creation in this in our own analysis. So what I've got set up here is each of the 5 of the areas that this particular symposium focused in on. As you can, you know, saw from the beginning, there's all these care, water, food, shelter, and cost. And so I pulled them here so we're kind of reminded of these areas here. And so what I've done is I went to the link to Viral Imaginations. So I'm going to paste that in at, whoops, I want to take the whole thing, but I want to paste this, I have to not paste it in, I just have to open it up to another link here to get into the gallery. And here we are in the gallery. And you'll notice if you scroll to the bottom, it will say load more. But here's, for example, this particular one. So what I'm doing is I'm clicking on this to get to the larger image of this piece here. And you probably can't see all this because I'm only sharing some of my screen here, but I'm clicking it and I'm dragging it to my desktop here. And once I have dragged it to my desktop, I can come back over here and let's say it relates to care. So I'm going to take it from my desktop and I'm going to pop it in here, but pretty much it fills a lot of the space, and I'm going to go back and make it a little bit smaller so that I can actually curate artworks that deal with care. And so I would have to argue why, or think about why this particular one about shopping and everything that you see in it. So I have a chance to go and look at it close here, but I also want to grab, and I think you can see my cursor here where I'm copying and pasting the URL, because everything, when you take a data set, you always want it to link back to its origins so that you can see the description, the title. We don't have to put all those words here. So I just went to this link up here, but obviously you have to remember, I often forget to click the apply button there, and it stays with it. So anytime I go onto this and link to it, if I click to it, I can always go back to the original and look at more. So that's how to bring the work into here. And I'm going to go back to this one in which I have done that here. If I clicked on this, you can see the links to its original works here. This one, I can see it large and such like this. But when I read the descriptions and I looked at the work, I thought about the how they have to do with self-care and the kind of tensions and turmoils and such of the self-care here, and how we have to modify our notions of thinking about self-care. And in this case, when I went to this one, I thought about it in terms of a collective healing. So you can see I have gone up to the line tool, and particularly the arrow, but there's all sorts of kind of marks and lines and what you can do here. And I'm thinking about the relationships to these two works as well as to this third piece here, and then coming up with an analysis that is talking about, in this curation on this particular page, modifying notions of self-care as collective healing. So this is my example for us to now go into where, and I'm going to come back to this one, I'm going to delete this one and leave it blank. And what I'd like to do is ask each of you to sort of curate your own little set. So you can pop things on other ones, but I'd like you to choose one of these so that you can go in more depth about that particular um, uh, uh, sustainability goal, like water. And you can use, I put like an example here and can build with this, but if two people choose, say the care one, we can just simply copy and paste and have two cares, two of these going on at any one time. So if somebody's working on this, you can, we're all going to be talking, so we can ask, should I work on yours or should I do a separate one here? So you can see how I have put something in relationship to each on each one. They also are linked to their source, and also sort of blank or open page there. This one I have a couple on the shelter, and then I also have this one started dealing with cost, and this one has to do with capitalism turning the heat up. And then we have a blank one to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this second one here because I don't know where you're going to start. But the best place to start is actually looking at the art. You can also link to it doesn't have, it's visual analysis because we're going to be looking at these works, but you can also bring in some of the creative writing if you want, and you can just put the title in there and link it to its source. After we build this, and let's see, we'll spend maybe about 10 or 15 minutes of building this, and I'll check in with you. We're going to turn the record off while we're building it, and then we'll turn the record on again when we have our discussion. And then we're going to look at our visual analysis, what curation each of us did or collectively we did together. So with that, I think we can pause the record and jump. Okay, we've really created these narratives here with our curation on several of these slides. And so let's look at what we've done, and we can add some of our analysis text on the slides as we discuss what we've done. And I began a little bit with my interpretation of this one here. Let's jump to this one that's really a lot of us have added to this one about food, as well as this one about shelter. I think we'll begin our conversations with either one of these. I see a couple of people are at this one right here. Let's talk about these images of food that that relates to the sustainability issue of food. And if we go look at the larger screen, we can see issues of insecurity, food insecurity. Organic and sustainable agriculture and foraging are the ways that the United Nations is asking us to think about this notion of or this theme of food. So let's look at the images that you put on this particular slide here with food. I think probably many of us have added something to this one page here. And if you would maybe jump in and say why you added the image that you did, and if we could just talk about each of these images, then we can just decide from that what kind of analysis we might come with the reasons why you put that here. So would someone like to begin with one of the works that you put here?
I started with putting the picture on the top right of the barren shelves in the supermarket. Mm-hmm. And I can recall, at the beginning of the pandemic when we were all not sure what direction things were going, and everyone kind of started hoarding food to make sure that they had enough.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So this, because we're a society in which we don't know how to forage, we don't know how the sustainability of our own gardens, or food that's we've done our own canning and things like that with. And that one kind of relates to this other one about grocery shopping as well. And this one is titled, and come back to this one here, is titled Mindset Shopping. And her description is, the jars on the shelves and hold negative emotions that are ready for purchase. So these kinds of, forget, lost weight, haha, and oh no, and don't panic. So coming back to this page here, it's like, you know, a lot of people's lives are about shopping, and they are buying things that they don't necessarily need. And so the fact of the empty shelves here and this panic that happened here is sort of represented in the almost products that we see in Bella's work here. So that's a relationship between this, a notion of consumption that actually leads to this anxiety and panic when it's not there, if we don't have it two of that product or two of something there. So that's thing. And then I added this one here too, and this one is the beginning of growing something. So this would be something more of a sustainable kind of way in which it looks like a potato coming through there, and new growth, new life. And it is more soothing to me than the empty grocery aisle there, as well as the items of life right now, of the panic and so on. And what are some of the other items that people have here? Who else added?
I think I added a lot of them, but I also added the pizza box with the eat, sleep, and repeat, which kind of makes us think of our, very basic needs that have come down. We need, basic food, shelter, going back to all of those things that we listed, and just kind of the cycle towards preserving that and making sure that we have everything that we need to exist.
Okay, so keep going and talking about it, and everyone, let's think about, if we were trying to connect this particular curation, what we might say. So go ahead and talk about the three other ones in there, if you put them in there.
I also put the grocery shopping one at the bottom that I think you mentioned at the beginning, which relates to the empty shelves. I think it's somebody, that basically came home after a hoarding expedition. And then the picture, the pencil drawing, is a COVID still life with I know that it's a bottle of wine. I think they changed Chardonnay to kind of like a COVID name and the name of the vineyards. I know we can't see closely on the bottle, but just thinking about trying to find pleasure in food with their time at home. And I think that also, when we go to the cherry, we can see that too, finding pleasure in these basic, simple things.
Yeah, so would we say hoarding is not a sustainable action? And then the kind of really, I think both of these sort of have us think about, maybe all three of these, about the being, mindful really of what is important, what is important to sustain life. And I would say that is also in relationship to this one here about the potato coming through, so. And in this one, I think Zena writes about, teaching her children about gardening and growing and such like that. Yeah, so there's and then, hoarding, and then of course the product, the wrapping, mindful of what is important to sustain life, really for all, because that's the problem with the hoarding, is like, yeah, you might sustain yourself for a while, but in the end, we are social beings and we live on this earth together. So yeah, so there could be more that could be said, but that's maybe a simple analysis for now. Let's go to the shelter one. A lot has been added to this one as well. That's those that, and I actually put the shopping one here because it's all the things that Well, I made my arrow here is like a little road because it's like the one thing we have done, many of us, we either had it delivered or we went and got our food because that is a necessity if we are sheltering in place. So we can't just have a shelter without the nourishment of food. So that's my little road symbol. What some others that places here? I know, Michelle, you did a lot here.
So I played with a corner like a little house that was like isolated in its own bubble. And I thought that the windows were both a looking in and looking out kind of experience because, we spent a lot of time being, the creatures on one side of the glass, kind of like we go to see at the, zoo. And on the other hand, we spent a lot of time looking out at the creatures that were free on the other side of the glass. And the picture, sometimes they got mixed up, like the picture of the starling that actually did get in my house, that's my picture, and then all the chaos that creates within the house, right? And how our companions are both the humankind and then the furred kind, and how all those relationships mix together, and how we take on all of these different roles within our house. So that's kind of the idea of house as both trap and sanctuary.
Yeah, that's a good place too to put the analysis down in the note area there to keep track of that. Yeah, and then this looks like a jail or a prison kind of thing, which many of us have felt, and even this or the religious symbol too. That either some kind of hope or hope for change. And this one, I thought I linked this one here, but it is another kind of way of another kind of shelter or trapping, but it's also, sort of creating these little environments within our environments that, the stories that come out of this is a lot about the things that have been going on with the racial inequities and police violence and so on like that. And so while we are trying to stay healthy and sheltering in place, there are things that we've needed to come out and protest and make change, because certainly the pandemic has impacted people differently, and as we know, the Black and Brown people, groups of people, communities have both in healthcare and in police violence have suffered greatly during this time. But yeah, there's always a little bit of hope in some of these areas here, but there's also looking at fears and capitalism. What does this consumption, how is that going to cost us, and the cost of human life and our separation there? Some of the other images, let's see this one here. Alex, did you add this one here?
I did, yeah. I've also been putting some things in the chat about what I think the visual analysis is. I don't know if you guys can see those or not.
Okay.
For the shelter, I said that some of the themes I was thinking about is security and protection, and also escapism. I put this image in here of her reading a book, because it feels like, because once you're in quarantine for a while, you start to feel like you want to change your space to feel like you're somewhere else, and like adapt your space to kind of escape from the reality of being in a very small four-walled room or house. And so I think shelter is also being able to shelter yourself from some kind of daunting realities. And so reading books is a way to get away from that, bringing the outside inside from houseplants and those kinds of things, adopting animals and pets. And it's just kind of a way to reclaim our space in a way that feels intentional, since we're here so much. So that's why I picked that one.
Yeah, nice. Is there any other one that anyone wants to talk about before we close this? I mean, you can see the analysis and this curation can go and should go on for a long time ahead, but not part of this particular symposium workshop here. What about this one though? Who added this one?
Oh, that was me. So I guess I can turn my camera on. So I put this one for care because I was thinking about this kind of one new assignment, and I experienced a lot of students and people that felt very burnt out, especially people that are in academia and just feeling overwhelmed. And I thought about care from like a teaching perspective, like, you know, how are we enacting care for our students and being considerate about burnout and exhaustion, and how can we help remedy some of those feelings of being overwhelmed by, you know, remediating what we assign, how we assign it, and how we engage. So I was just thinking about care as, you know, what our role is and responsibility is to care as or as a practice of care as an educator.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, very, very, very important. Well, with that, this site is accessible to continue to build, and the link is available there. I tend to do a save, and so that if anything gets destroyed, I always have it. So I kind of leave it open. It's an open site for analysis, and we see what happens with anybody who maybe is watching this recording. If you'd like to jump on in here, and the instructions are there to follow up. And I think with that, I'm going to maybe stop sharing here, and we will close this workshop. Really appreciate the involvement of those here, and I think, you know, it's kind of set up for a larger group of people to come to at different times. Take your time and do your own kind of curation according to the United Nations sustainability goals to see what people are thinking about that today. They've raised a lot of concerns that that I think we really can attend to and think about what do we want to do as we move, you know, out of at least the shelter in place kind of stage. I think the coronavirus's impact is going to be with us for some, for, you know, perhaps generations, if not, you know, years, but it has impacted the young people, all of us elders, everyone in between. So it's important to attend to as we think about United Nations, these sustainability goals. They really shape differently all over the world now in relationship to the pandemic. So, and you know, thank you for coming to the workshop. And with that, we can close.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.